In this first video, we'll spend a little time focusing on one of the key elements and most important aspects of running a CSA business: passion. We're starting here because CSA is a movement that's bigger than any one particular farm. CSA is more than just a business model or marketing scheme. By the end of this video, we want you to have a better understanding of CSA, why it was created, and how it has evolved over time. We want you to have an awareness of the concept of shared risk and shared bounty, to understand what sets CSA apart from other business models, and how to recognize the generally agreed upon ethics we see in CSAs across the nation. At the end, once you know a little bit more about CSA, we'll ask you to evaluate whether or not this kind of business resonates with you. To kick things off, we've invited Claire Strader of Fair Share CSA Coalition to join us and share a brief history of the CSA movement.
So in its simplest form, CSA is a subscription service where members sign up with a farm and then the farmer brings the fresh harvest into their neighborhood on a regular basis where the members can pick up that produce from the farm. In its truer form, CSA is a little more complicated than that. Those letters stand for Community Supported Agriculture. And embedded in that is an agreement between the farmers and the members that they're going to participate in this community together. And so what that means on the member end is that they agree to pick up their shares, they agree to maybe on at least occasion read the newsletter, they pay an upfront cost for those vegetables, which then frees the farmer to focus on their part of the promise, which is community building and really at its core growing excellent food. So members are much more interested in not just that local connection, but also that connection to a farming community, and that's the farmer's responsibility to provide. CSA as we know it today has its roots in at least 3 agricultural movements. The first originated here in the United States in the 1960s and 70s with Dr. Booker T. Whatley. He was a black farmer and agriculture professor at Tuskegee University, and he really advocated for smaller and smarter farming. He developed a system that he called clientele membership clubs, and those clubs were virtually identical to CSA today, with the one exception being that all those members had to actually come out to the farm not just to pick up their shares, but to actually harvest their food. While Dr. Whatley was promoting his clientele membership clubs, similar concepts were evolving in Europe and Japan. So in Europe, Rudolf Steiner developed biodynamic farming, Waldorf education, and other really community-based concepts where he was embedding the farm and that community around the farm in a healthy society, the concept of a healthy society. In Japan, women were concerned about food safety, pesticides on their food, and also the decline of the small family farm. And they came up with a system called the TK system. And that system was designed to put the farmer's face on the food, and then also obviously develop this mutually supportive consumer-producer interaction. These days, there are lots of options for setting up a CSA and lots of choices that farmers have to make. I think the first choice is around delivery style. So do you want to pack a box on the farm and then bring it into a neighborhood or a population center and drop it off? That tends to be an easy style for farmers and pretty easy for members as well. As an alternative, some farms will do a market type delivery where they set up a market stand and members come and pack their own shares. That was actually the type of delivery style that I used when I was farming, and it was a great way for me to interact with customers every week. And then they also developed a strong relationship with the farm, and it really helped build loyalty for my CSA. Pre-packed customized shares have gained a lot of popularity in the last few years, and there are software platforms that will help farmers organize that work. These platforms do cost money, and they're a huge topic in and of themselves. The farms that use them, however, including Parkridge Organics and also Crossroads Community Farm, they feel that their members really love that choice, and so they feel that it's worth it. Most farms offer different share sizes to accommodate different family sizes and different diets. So for instance, a small family or a family that tends to eat out frequently might choose a smaller size, whereas a family that has a lot of people to feed, or even a small family that eats at home all the time, might choose a larger size. Finally, you have to decide how often members will get their shares. Most farms offer a weekly option, And there are also lots of farms that offer an every other week delivery. As a farmer, I was really hesitant to go into every other week, but once I did it, I found out that the members loved it and that it was really pretty easy for me to organize on my side.
Though CSA has started to take on many forms in recent years, the tradition of CSA still centers on passion and community. In some cases, it is still the driving force of decades-old businesses. Take Polly Heiser of Seven Springs Farm, for example. She has been doing the traditional model of CSA for 30 years. When asked what she wished she would have known before starting a CSA, her answer was beautifully simple. Polly says, "I think the answer is nothing. I'm afraid if I'd known about the specific difficulties I'd face, maybe I wouldn't have done it. I've loved the model from the start, and my attitude has always been, since I love this so much, I'm going to figure out how to make it work." And I have made it work, even though I've made very little money. I think it suits my personality as well, better than farmers markets or restaurant marketing ever would. I love getting to know my members, watching their children grow up, getting to be friends with them, and learning what their favorite vegetables are. I'm extremely grateful to be able to do this work. A deep passion for community is often where CSA begins, but it's also about one's willingness to be part of a broader community of farmers all working to meet similar goals. Though CSA has evolved a lot over time, there are still certain consistencies and guidelines we see across the nation when it comes to how to run a successful CSA operation. Claire Strader of Fair Share is going to walk us through a few of these foundational principles.
Fair Share CSA Coalition started in 1992 as a coalition of farmers and eaters who wanted to bring CSA to Wisconsin. Over the years, we have grown to 45 farms and thousands of members across the Midwest. Along the way, we have learned that there are a few foundational principles that really ground successful CSA farms. So first, the farms need to have their production practices dialed in and be able to grow a wide variety of crops. Most of the farms in our coalition grow between 30 and 40 crops. They might buy in a few crops, so things like potatoes or sweet corn. Those things are member favorites, but they also require a lot of land and some additional equipment. And so some farms will buy those in order to be able to provide them. But still, most of the variety should be coming from your farm. Regardless of the number of crops in the share, all the food has to be top quality. It has to be well cleaned and properly packaged and stored. No matter what else the CSA has going for it, if the food is not excellent, members will not come back. Nobody wants bitter cucumbers or starchy peas or a pile of dirt on their counter. So once those quality controls are in place, a farmer is ready to talk about shared risk and shared reward with CSA members. That shared risk is not about the farmer's ability to grow the food, but rather about unexpected circumstances, like maybe a hailstorm or a flood or some disease that wipes out a crop. Likewise, when the harvest is bountiful, members want to see that bounty in their shares. That is not to say they want to be overwhelmed with too much food. They want to be able to use what you give them. But at the same time, if you have a huge abundance of tomatoes, they don't want to see just one or two in their share and then go to the grocery store and see that you're selling bushels of them there. Which brings us to transparency. Generally, the more members know about what's happening on the farm and how that's affecting their shares, the better. For instance, if there's a hailstorm that takes out the peppers or some portion of the peppers, the members need to hear about that. They need to know whether they're going to see that crop in their shares and what it might look like if they do. At the same time, if you've told them that the hail has damaged those peppers and they're not going to get any, and then they see you at farmers market selling peppers, they're going to be turned off. That transparency is a really important way to build trust. Finally, education is a great way not only to keep members engaged, but to help them feel supported. When you provide recipes and storage tips for those vegetables, you help them eat good food. You can share a story about yourself and why you like that particular recipe. You can also give them a tip that those onions that you're providing will keep for a long time. It's not something they have to use up right away, whereas those peas or that sweet corn, they really want to eat that today. They also want to hear about your family, what it's like to be a farmer. They want to hear about how much you love growing food, all of those stories that you provide them. And it helps them feel like they are involved in something special, that helps them feel like they are helping make the world better by being part of your farm.
At the end of the day, your ability or inability to follow the principles inherent in CSA has huge implications for the whole movement. CSA is the food system model of the future, and it is the primary income for thousands of farmers across the nation. A deep understanding of the model, the movement, and the expectations inherent within it are important to understand before diving in. So after hearing all that, how do you feel about CSA? Are you passionate about it? Do you feel excited by the style of business, or do you feel daunted? Are you eager to dive in and start building community, or overwhelmed by the pressure? Take some time before moving into the next video to reflect on the content of this video and your own reasons for wanting to start a CSA. The link to the course workbook can be found in the notes below.